That night, the man had a strange and frightening dream. In his sleep, he found himself clicking on one of those forbidden videos. His heart pounded as he saw a pale hand slowly reach out from an old, abandoned well. Soon, a dark shadow rose from within it. His chest tightened, beating faster and faster, as a woman began crawling out of the well. Her face was hidden behind messy, black hair that fell like a curtain. Step by step, she came closer until she crawled right out of the screen. The man froze in fear, but this was only the beginning. The ghostly girl finally stood tall, looking down at him with cold intent. She let out a terrifying growl, but something felt odd. The ghost wasn't her usual frightening self, she was only a few inches tall. Somehow, her cursed power had shrunk along with her size, leaving her as harmless as a baby. This tiny Sadako still tried her best to haunt the man appearing when he came home from work, while he was sleeping, and even when he was heading out. But no matter what she did, her small body and weak strength made her more pitiful than scary. She pushed herself so hard that she eventually fainted from exhaustion. Luckily, the man noticed her collapse. When she woke up, she found herself resting on a soft paper pillow, covered with a folded handkerchief like a blanket. Beside her was a plate of cookies, which she eagerly ate to fill her empty stomach. Later, when the man returned from work, he greeted her warmly, as if they were housemates now. On the table, he noticed the empty plate and a note with scribbled words. The handwriting was creepy, the letters shaky and spelled wrong, but he guessed Sadako was trying to say thank you. Meanwhile, Sadako sat happily munching on a plate of rice crackers, enjoying every bite. But suddenly, something moved behind her. She turned and spotted a cockroach sitting boldly on her rice crackers. Annoyed that it dared touch her food, Sadako did what she did best, trying to scare it away. She unleashed her spooky powers, but the cockroach didn't care. Instead, it leapt right over her and ran. Furious, Sadako chased after it, but the bug slipped under the table. She crawled under to catch it, only to face a nightmare, an army of cockroaches waiting for her. They swarmed her, tugging at her hair and biting her dress. Horrified, Sadako screamed and ran for her life until she scrambled up a tall shelf, barely escaping their attack. On the shelf above, Sadako spotted several figurines. Her eyes locked onto a warrior figure, and an idea sparked in her mind. Meanwhile, the cockroaches were happily feasting on the plate of rice crackers. But their celebration didn't last long. Out of nowhere, Sadako leapt down from above, armed with a sword she had borrowed from the warrior figurine, complete with its tiny armor. In her hands, the blade turned into a deadly weapon, cutting down the cockroach army without mercy. Later that evening, the nameless man returned home, tired from work. But as soon as he opened the door, he froze in shock. Right before him stood warrior Sadako, surrounded by the fallen bodies of cockroaches, the ground stained in their blood. The man wailed in despair, just like that famous JoJo's Bizarre Adventure scene. But he wasn't crying for the roaches, he was heartbroken over the ruined warrior figurine that Sadako had sacrificed in battle. That poor collectible. May it rest in peace. Still grieving, the man sighed and began cleaning up the battlefield. Watching him, Sadako realized she too was covered in filth from the fight. Without a second thought, she tried to climb into a cup of water to clean herself. Luckily, the man stopped her in time and, with a reluctant face, prepared a small warm bath instead. Sadako happily soaked in the water, thankful for his kindness. When she was done, the man respectfully turned his head away, offering her a towel. He even helped dry her with a hairdryer, while her clothes hung nearby to dry. But Sadako still needed something to wear. The man glanced around and finally looked at his prized figurine collection. Before long, Sadako was wearing a shirt borrowed from one of his dolls. Surprisingly, she looked stunning in the outfit, which gave the man an idea he couldn't resist. Soon, a delivery arrived. With great excitement, the man brought the package inside and shyly showed it to Sadako. Inside was a perfectly sized maid outfit. Being an otaku, he eagerly begged her to try it on. Confused but cooperative, Sadako changed into the dress. The results were dazzling. She even struck a little pose, almost like she was putting on a show. The man was overjoyed, snapping photos in excitement, while Sadako looked on, unsure why he was so thrilled. But then things turned eerie. When the man checked his camera, her terrifying ghostly aura appeared in every photo. Horrified, he quickly made the painful decision to delete them all. Later, Sadako was seen casually watching a horror show on TV. The man, still curious, asked her if she could go back into the screen the same way she once came out. Sadako explained that a ghost can only return to the screen if they manage to scare and take the life of their target. Since she hadn't been able to frighten him or claim his soul, she was stuck in the real world. Of course, the man wasn't about to sacrifice himself. Seeing her so calm and harmless, he decided to help in another way. Using his crafting skills, he built a special little pot just for her. Sadako climbed in and found it surprisingly comfortable, so she used it as her bed for the night. The next morning, she emerged from the pot in her signature horror style, crawling out as creepily as possible. But before she could finish her act, she noticed something floating above her head, a glowing chat box. The man proudly revealed it as his new invention, excited to show her. But Sadako wasn't impressed. Annoyed, she grabbed the chat box and angrily hurled it straight at his face. One morning, the man lazily sat in front of his computer and checked the account he had made for Sadako called Sadako16. Until now, it had no followers at all. But suddenly, the number had jumped to more than 30,000. The man snapped fully awake, sweating in shock. Without wasting a second, he rushed online and started shopping for new outfits for Sadako. Before long, his room turned into a mini fashion show, with Sadako modeling costume after costume while he clicked photos like a proud manager. After hours of dressing up and posing, even Sadako got tired. To thank her, the man gave her a plate of cookies. Somewhere else, in a dark room, a strange woman sat at her computer, her desk piled with odd magazines. She turned out to be a huge fan of Sadako and eagerly saved every picture that appeared on the account. Later, the nameless man sat nervously inside a cafe. He had been invited here through a message sent to Sadako's account. Soon, a smiling woman appeared and introduced herself as an editor for Spice Girl magazine. The man looked at her card and admitted he was a fan of the magazine too. She explained that she adored Sadako and wanted to do an interview with her. The man was so shocked he spilled his juice. His mind raced with worry if Sadako was exposed, the government might capture her. Without a second thought, he refused and ran out of the cafe. Watching his suspicious behavior, the woman began to think something darker was going on. She imagined Sadako might actually be chained up and forced to model against her will. Convinced of this, she decided to follow him. She tracked him to his apartment and climbed up to peek inside through the window. What she saw left her stunned. Sadako, in her tiny form, sitting right there. Startled, Sadako instantly made a scary face. The woman screamed in return, her face twisted with fear. She was so shocked that she slipped, almost falling from the window. But the man rushed in at the right time and pulled her to safety. Once inside, the woman apologized over and over for spying on him. The man, however, felt heartbroken that she thought of him as someone cruel. Seeing his sadness, the woman felt guilty, and he finally decided to explain the whole story. She admitted she liked Sadako, though Sadako herself didn't seem to return the same feelings. Whenever Sadako tried to scare her, the woman screamed too easily. To ease the tension, the man offered to make tea, but then realized he was out of tea leaves. He left to buy some from the store while the woman stayed behind in his apartment. But when he returned, both she and Sadako were gone. His first thought was that the woman had kidnapped Sadako, but the truth was different. While waiting, the woman politely looked around the apartment, eyeing his figurine collection. Meanwhile, Sadako sat by the window, nibbling on a cookie. Suddenly, a trespasser entered through the window, a pigeon, which looked like a giant dragon to the tiny Sadako. The woman also noticed it as the bird and Sadako began fighting over the cookie. The angry pigeon finally snatched Sadako up in its claws. Thinking quickly, the woman threw her own cookie at the bird, hitting it and forcing it to drop Sadako. She fell into the bushes below, and the woman dashed outside to save her. Sadako lay flat on the ground, but soon stood up only to be met with a new enemy. Behind her was a kitten, but in Sadako's tiny eyes, it looked as terrifying as a tiger. The woman kept searching frantically until she noticed movement in the bushes. There, she saw Sadako battling the kitten. Just as the kitten raised its paw to strike, the woman grabbed it from behind and pulled it away. The woman managed to rescue Sadako, but the kitten wasn't happy. Using a quick twist, it freed itself from her grasp with what looked like a special cat technique. Ignoring the kitten, the woman gently reached out her hand to Sadako, smiling kindly. Meanwhile, the nameless man returned home, still shocked to see his apartment empty until the woman and Sadako came back safely. The woman stood tall, proud of her mission success, while Sadako gave a little thumbs up to thank her. The man, however, was puzzled. His apartment was on the 3rd floor. How on earth did the woman manage to climb all the way up to his window? Embarrassed, she explained that she used to be overweight, so she worked hard at the gym to get stronger, and that's how she managed the climb. The woman explained that her weight loss trainer was actually a muscle enthusiast. Instead of helping her slim down, he pushed her into heavy training, and she ended up building strong muscles. Embarrassed, she admitted that she had used her sheer strength to climb up the pole to reach his 3rd floor window. But to her surprise, both the man and Sadako approved of her hard-earned muscles and praised her. Just then, someone knocked at the door. When the man opened it, the same woman editor stood there again, but she looked completely different this time. She had transformed with the power of makeup, looking stylish and full of confidence. She came inside with snacks, but her real reason for visiting was simple: she wanted to meet Sadako again. However, it was hard to read Sadako's expression with all that thick black hair covering her face. Curious, the woman asked how Sadako really looked, but even the man had no idea. Finally, Sadako pulled her hair back and revealed her face. Both the man and the woman were taken aback. It wasn't exactly the sight they expected. The woman quickly pulled out her makeup kit and went to work. After a flurry of brushes and powders, she stepped back proudly. The man peeked at Sadako and was stunned. Before him stood a beautiful and elegant Sadako, transformed completely by the magic of makeup. She blushed at their admiration, which made her look even cuter. The woman suggested they take pictures, so the man turned into a cameraman, snapping a perfect shot of Sadako. Later, the photo was even framed as a memory. Then, the woman mentioned trying new outfits on Sadako, but the man felt unsure about it. Meanwhile, in another part of town, a boy stared at a doll lying in a coffin-shaped box. This wasn't an ordinary doll, it was cursed. But before anything more could happen, his mother called him to help out in their toy shop, which was packed with customers for a big sale. He left the doll behind in his room, unaware of what would follow. At the shop, the editor woman was one of the many customers waiting in line. She was nervous, watching the dolls sell out one after another. Her worries came true by the time she reached the counter. The dolls were all gone. Seeing her disappointment, the shopkeeper offered her one from his own collection, but at a higher price. She didn't hesitate and agreed immediately. When he went upstairs, he found the cursed doll lying at his feet. Thinking his mother had dropped it, he picked it up and packed it for the woman. She paid happily and left with her special doll. It looked beautiful in her hands, but its eyes shifted ever so slightly, following her. Later, she invited the nameless man to her home, and of course, Sadako came along, sitting on his shoulder. Inside, the man noticed her collection of figurines and gave an approving nod. The woman beamed, then rushed into another room to bring something out. She entered the dark room excitedly, only to realize her newly bought doll was no longer inside its box. A chill ran down her spine. She turned around slowly, already sensing something terrible. Meanwhile, the man and Sadako enjoyed the snacks she had set out. But after a while, the man grew concerned. She had been gone for too long. He stood up to check, walking toward the dark room. At the entrance, his eyes fell on a trail of blood drops leading inside. His heart sank. Something was terribly wrong. The man rushed into the dark room and froze. The editor woman was tied up in the corner, looking terrified. He moved forward to help her, but suddenly felt something sinister nearby. Turning quickly, he saw an evil-looking doll leaping at him, a knife raised in its tiny hands. Just before the blade could strike, Sadako appeared, blocking the attack with a knife of her own. The man pulled the woman out of the room while Sadako stayed behind to face the enemy. The two small figures, Sadako and the cursed doll, stood face to face, their eyes locked. Without a word, the battle began. Blades clashed, movements sharp and fast, neither side giving in. But after a fierce exchange, the doll realized too late that one of her arms and a leg had been sliced away. Sadako pressed her advantage, striking for the doll's neck. The doll tried desperately to stop it, catching the blade in her teeth. But Sadako kicked her in the stomach, sending her crashing into the wall. Terror flickered in the doll's glassy eyes as Sadako gave her a thumbs down, mocking her weakness, saying she was even less of a challenge than the pigeon and kitten she had fought before. With knife in hand, Sadako advanced. The evil doll, broken and cornered, remembered her creation, how her maker had experimented endlessly until finally giving her life. Refusing to give up, she plotted a counterattack. Meanwhile, the man carefully treated the editor woman's wounds, wrapping bandages as she winced in pain. Then, with a crash, the doll hit the ground behind them, completely shattered. Sadako had won. The man sighed in relief, but it didn't last. Out of nowhere, another figurine lunged at him, pressing a knife against his neck. Luckily, the woman acted fast, grabbing the figurine and smashing it into the wall. But then their relief vanished again. Every figurine in the room had come to life. With glowing, eerie auras, they began marching toward them. The figurines charged. The woman drew on her muscle training, striking back with powerful moves. Just as one figurine was about to land a close attack, Sadako swooped in to protect her. The two fought back to back, holding their ground. But suddenly, a figurine looped a rope around the table leg, tripping the woman and sending her crashing into a bookshelf. The heavy shelf shook and tilted dangerously. She lay unconscious, and the bookshelf was about to topple onto her. The man saw it and dashed forward, throwing his back against the massive shelf to stop it from crushing her. The weight was unbearable, and while he struggled, a figurine took its chance, aiming scissors at his throat. He shut his eyes, bracing for death. But when he opened them, he saw Sadako. She had taken the blow, the scissors piercing into her tiny body. Even wounded, she pulled them out and fought on with everything she had. But the enemies were too many. The man shoved the shelf back upright and tried to reach her, but when he looked, his heart broke. Sadako was stabbed again and again, her form fading. He pushed through the swarm, but all he could grab was her knife. Sadako had disappeared completely. Pain and fury burned inside him. He fought wildly, kicking and punching the cursed figurines away, desperate to protect the unconscious woman. But then, a familiar enemy returned. The evil doll had survived, her missing arm replaced with a knife, and her broken leg replaced with a screw. She lunged at him again without hesitation. The man stood ready, the two of them facing off in front of a large glowing screen. On the screen, an old well appeared like a ray of hope shining through the chaos. Sadako peeks out of her little special cup, craving a cookie. Without wasting time, she hops down and rushes toward the kitchen. Using her unique Sadako-style athletic skills, she quickly climbs up the cupboard, snatches the cookie box, and lands safely on the floor. Excited to enjoy her prize, she's about to eat when suddenly the stand holding forks and knives starts tipping over her. Just then, the woman rushes in dramatically and steadies it in time. The woman sighs with relief, but Sadako looks at her in confusion, not understanding why she reacted like that. The woman asks what would have happened if all those sharp knives had fallen on her. Sadako calmly explains that she usually lives inside a well within the TV screen and only comes out sometimes to scare the house owner. She says that when she first appears, her energy is full, like having a 3-star level. But once someone attacks her, her energy starts draining until she disappears. After vanishing, she simply returns to her well, still remembering the person who harmed her. When that person moves to a new house and turns on the screen again, Sadako comes out to take her revenge, this time with infinite energy and a terrifying 7-star level. Hearing this, the woman shivers in fear. Back to the present moment, the man and the evil doll are locked in a tense standoff. Using what she just learned, the woman quickly turns on the screen. Suddenly, a pale hand crawls out from the dark well inside the screen. Sadako emerges, this time looking much larger, scarier, and far more powerful than before. The evil doll senses danger and fuses with the other figurines, transforming into a giant monster almost like a transformer equal in size to Sadako. Without hesitation, the two clash. At first, they seem evenly matched, but Sadako's infinite energy and 7-star level give her the upper hand. She grabs the massive transformer by the neck, but the evil doll detaches herself from the body and lunges forward to attack. Sadako, however, quickly catches her with her free hand, glaring furiously into her eyes. Pulling the doll closer, Sadako lets out a deafening shriek so powerful that not only the evil doll, but even the man nearby, is shaken by the terrifying sound. The evil doll finally meets her end, and the massive transformer collapses after her fall. But the man, overwhelmed by Sadako's terrifying shriek, faints and nearly hits the ground only to be caught by Sadako herself. Through his half-open eyes, he sees the eerie image of the well on the screen, before everything goes completely black. When he wakes again, the first thing he notices is the woman crying by his side. She hugs him tightly, relieved that he's alive, and he gently hugs her back. Once she calms down, he immediately asks about Sadako. The woman glances at the TV, but all that remains is a blank, snow-white screen. Later, at the toy store, the woman angrily drops a box full of broken figurines, including the evil doll, onto the counter. She furiously recounts everything that happened, blaming the shopkeeper for selling such cursed toys. The shopkeeper, confused at her words, peers inside the box. Shocked by the pile of broken dolls, his face lights up with an odd excitement. Without hesitation, he pulls out money from his wallet and pays her for all the damaged toys. Suspicious, the man and the woman secretly watch as he carries the box away, only to discover a hidden cupboard crammed full of broken dolls. Horrified, they've had enough. Both scream in frustration and rush out of the shop, wanting nothing more to do with those ominous toys. Time passes, and it's Christmas Eve. The man and woman are out together on a date when they notice a movie poster featuring a creepy well. It looks like a horror film about Sadako, and they decide to watch it. Meanwhile, far away in the skies, a comet crashes toward Earth. To everyone's shock, it takes the form of a towering alien that looks like a mechanical transformer. Crowds gather, snapping photos of the strange creature, until it suddenly starts blasting lasers from its eyes. Panic breaks out as people run for their lives. The chaos even reaches the cinema, and the audience rushes to evacuate. In the middle of the panic, the man looks up at the giant theater screen and spots something chilling, the same cursed well he saw before. Out in the city, the alien stomps around, wreaking havoc. But then, from the smoke of a collapsing building, another figure appears. The man and woman instantly recognize her. It's Sadako. She has returned, now towering in size to match the alien. The two giants clash fiercely, the alien firing beams while Sadako skillfully dodges, countering with raw strength. At one point, she seizes the alien by the head and slams it down. Then, gathering energy from her surroundings, she prepares a powerful attack. The man trembles, thinking she's about to unleash that same bone-shaking shriek as before. Covering his ears in fear, he braces for it. But instead, Sadako channels the energy into a massive blast that engulfs the alien. The city shakes, debris flies everywhere, and for a moment all is silent. When the dust clears, Sadako stands tall, victorious. The man looks at her with both relief and awe. She glances back, and in a strangely human gesture, both he and the woman give her a thumbs up. Sadako nods, then silently turns and walks away into the forest of tall city buildings. Behind her, the crowd cheers, and so, the lesson is clear. Sadako never truly dies.